should now be fully saturated with oxygen, so there's no need to breathe in. So we'll go straight into our 5 forced exhales. And I think the easiest way to think of this is we've all inflated party balloons, and that is the extent of the exhalation we need to deplete CO2. And obviously if you're breathing out through your mouth, you're going to deplete more CO2 than if you breathe out through your nose. Okay? So I tend to just imagine you are blowing the balloon. Okay? So we'll do, the thing is with Breatholds, no anxiety, no stress. If you want to breathe, breathe. Right? Don't feel you have to hold on, because I'm just going to set a time each time. Okay? So override anything I say if you wish. Right? It's your body, your mind. Sharp exhales. Passive breath out and hold. Breathe out and hum. Reoxygenate. Big breath in, short breath out. What was your oxygen situation?
I was at 83.
83. Right, okay. Don't go below 80. Right? Just take a breath in if you see it, go below 80. Russell was exactly the same, because you're not used to breath work, are you? So, at a minute and a half, my oxygen saturation is 98%. Whereas after 1 minute, Rachel's is 82. So, it shows that with prolonged practice, you retain your oxygen for longer. Think of what effect that has on exercise performance. So, next round. 5 forced exhalations, and we'll go for 115. Inflate the party balloon. When you're ready, take a big breath in. massive breath out and hold. Breathe out and hum. Feel the vibration in your nasal cavity. Reoxygenate your brain. Breathing in. Short breath out. Big breath in. Short breath out. Big breath in, and you should be getting back to normal, Rachel. Where are you?
Well, it's 99 now. It doesn't start dropping until after I've started breathing again, because it's behind.
It's, 20 seconds. I reckon it's 20 seconds. And that's why I say that what I do is, instead of doing the humming, I take one breath and I hold. And I watch it go down to 80, and then I watch it go back to 99 before I take another breath. And that proves to me that one breath brought me back to normal. Because there was no other air coming in, except one breath. But if you're not used to doing that, you may need 3 to 5 breaths to get back up to normal. Okay, I've forgotten how many rounds we've done, but we need another one. So, let's have another 10. Is everyone with me?
It's getting hard, so.
It's getting hard. And when it gets hard, you get air hunger. And the body's reaction is to the brain will tell the diaphragm to start to squeeze. Right? You get like all of this sort of thing. Yeah, and that is telling you. Now, free divers say that halfway through a dive, they can get contractions. So if they're on a 6-minute dive, can you imagine holding that for another 3 minutes with that agony going on? And I've watched Stig Stevenson, the world record holder, do a breath hold in a swimming pool, head underwater, for 22 minutes. And he, with pure oxygen to start, it's impossible. And he was obviously getting contractions at like 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. So he was thrashing around for another, 10 minutes or 7 minutes. Horrendous. Every day, if you practice this, you experience a mini death. You suffocate every day. You get to know that feeling, then it doesn't become a fear, of course, because you feel that. I tend to do maybe 30 seconds of contractions, just to try to control.
Your body used to overcoming it. You've got to fight. You have to literally fight.
But you fight it not with telling it to stop, but by just saying, come on.
Yeah, sure.
Relax. Only relaxation will get you through a breath hold. You can't force a breath hold.
I know you've told me about going to a happy place.
You
Which
have to
helps a lot.
engage your mind. That's the main thing. Okay, so let's do one more. So we're on to 1 minute 30. So remember, no anxiety, no stress. If you want to stop, just stop. override everything I say, and you are in control of your mind and your body. Okay. Right, forced exhales. Remember, it's CO2 that is the driver to breathe, not oxygen. To deplete your CO2, your breath hold is longer, is more comfortable. Each breath hold is longer because your starting point of CO2 is lower. When you're ready, take a big breath in. Passive breath out and hold. Reoxygenate, breathing in, fully, breathe out, breathe in fully. Okay, so leave that there for now. What level did you go to?
I stopped early.
Right.
And it's still got 78.
78. Okay. Pretty much the same as Russell, down to 75. But that was a minute and a half. Last time we only did like 70 seconds maximum, something like that. But yes, it demonstrates the intermittent nature of hypoxemia, doesn't it? That with 3 to 5 breaths, you're back to 99% normal. So that's really important to understand. Research this, see, go on YouTube and look at Breatholds. You'll see hundreds of videos on the benefits of hypoxic training. There are no benefits to hypoxic training. It's a contradiction in terms. We are doing hypoxemia. The clue is in the name. Emia means in your blood. Hypoxia is a low oxygen in your brain and your tissues. You don't want that. You want to increase the oxygen in your brain and your tissues. And you do that through hypoxemia. So you have to understand the oxygen in your blood, it's a transportation system. And it somehow has to then get into your tissues and your muscles and your brain. And it does that in the presence of CO2. So when the CO2 rises, then the Bohr effect has a right shift in the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. The partial pressure of oxygen is greater, and it can then leave its binding to hemoglobin and go into your muscles in your brain. Okay, so that is the benefit of breath holding. When you're holding your breath, your oxygen is dropping, but your CO2 is going up, and when the CO2 reaches the ceiling, you get contractions. And that's when the war effect has taken place. So what
causes
you...
the contractions then?
Sorry?
What's the contraction?
This emergency going on, that this trauma of you're losing your life. Your brain is saying, diaphragm, make it breathe, make it breathe.
So it's the diaphragm that's doing
It's the diaphragm that does it. But the brain is telling it. And even if, like in Stig Stevenson, he overrides that and he passes out, the brain thinks, thank goodness for that, I'll just take over again. He's unconscious now, and the diaphragm will start to make him breathe. So it's the diaphragm that gives you the contraction, so you feel this. It's like doing abdominal work, but you don't know it just happens. It's horrible. It really is horrible.
I was in medical school, we did some experiments on breathing, and there was one that really stuck in my mind. So I did one where I was attached to a spirometer, which measures how deep and fast you breathe. And I was attached to a spirometer.
Come round.
That basically it was a sealed unit. So what I breathed in and what I breathed out was exactly the same. So over time, the oxygen levels in that dropped and the CO2 levels rose. And it was a really unpleasant feeling. And my breathing just got faster and faster and shallower until I just couldn't do it anymore and had to stop.
Yeah.
But the converse for that, and one that could only be done while supervised by the doctor there, was one where they put soda lime in the spirometer so that the CO2 levels never went up. So the CO2 levels never went up, but the oxygen levels dropped.
Right.
And the person doing that test just kept breathing normally until they passed out, because their oxygen levels were 60-odd%. And as soon as their head started to drop and they become unconscious, and the student was asked afterwards, how did that feel? She went,
So did
felt
you say
absolutely
the
fine.
CO2 levels didn't?
They didn't. There was a chemical in the spirometer to absorb the CO2.
Right, so the CO2 remained level, but the oxygen dropped.
The oxygen dropped, but they weren't aware of
Right,
that.
okay,
They
right.
had no drive to breathe faster or deeper, because in most people we don't have something called a hypoxic drive. We have a CO2 drive. Unless you have bad COPD, when your body is used to having CO2, in which case you have a hypoxic drive, which means that you'll breathe when your oxygen levels go down. Now the reason why we learn about that in hospital is because we give somebody oxygen with a hypoxic drive and bring their oxygen levels too high, just stop breathing. Whereas actually we have to be careful not to give people oxygen because it can cause harm.
That's really interesting. And also it brings to mind the case of the lady who had a missing amygdala, so she could not feel fear or pain, and she had a terrible life, but she never felt any fear or panic in her life. They gave her CO2 and a mask, and for the first time in her life she tore the mask off and had a panic attack. With a missing amygdala, the fear centre of your brain. That is how primal, how powerful CO2 is. And it goes back to everything we talked about. So because you're over-breathing in both cases. So that is a life-threatening emergency, and it's only when you increase CO2 do you disarm the reptilian brain, do you disarm the primate brain, and that then leads you into the parasympathetic and all the neurological benefits of having high CO2. When CO2 is high, you have acidosis, your blood is highly acid, and that is basically what got me into this, because it's a more healing environment for my injury than alkaline. So there are so many benefits to retaining a high CO2 on a daily basis and avoiding the low CO2, which will create anxiety, has a negative feedback loop into overbreathing, which then makes you more anxious. So you overbreathe a bit more, and it just continues until you can break that cycle by changing your blood chemistry, raising your CO2.
You can only do that when you do it though, otherwise your normal O2 is 99%.
It's got nothing to do with oxygen, CO2.
So you can maintain a high CO2 throughout the day.
Well, you've maintained a high CO2 by not breathing.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can maintain a high CO2 by breathing slow. And that's the whole point of feather breathing, is that you reduce your respiratory rate, and the research shows between 4.5 and 6 breaths per minute. When you do that, you activate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, acetylcholine, lowers your inflammatory markers, and you then get into that calm, peaceful state.
So is that what you do throughout the whole of the day?
Always.
Oh, right, okay.
6 breaths per minute is the maximum, if you can do it. So it's as easy as breathing in for 5, out for 5. You just need a 10-second breath to get 6 breaths per minute.
Yeah,
But if you can extend the exhale a little bit longer, it has more of a calming effect. Because when you inhale, your heart rate goes up. When you exhale, your heart rate goes down. This is what is known as heart rate variability. One is sympathetic, the other is parasympathetic. Okay. This side of your brain is parasympathetic, this is sympathetic.
So you're at a stage now where you do that without even thinking you have to do it?
Probably.
Otherwise, you have to think to do this.
I rarely catch myself breathing too fast, but I always make a conscious effort to think slow.
Right, yes,
And if you're breathing nasally, then you get the benefit of the nitric oxide as well. So, yeah, lots of interesting things there. So let's just move on to, I'm not going to do it again, I'm not going to go past exercise 1 for 2 hours. Let's just try something a little bit different. Now, I was mentioning this side and that side. Every 90 minutes during your day, your brain will change your breathing from one nostril to the other. Not completely, it may be 60-40, 70-30. And the reason it does that every 90 minutes is because when you breathe in through your left nostril, it activates the right hemisphere of your brain. When you breathe in through the right nostril, it activates the left hemisphere of your brain. I tend to think of the right hemisphere as a Picasso, right? It's very creative, intuitive, like a sixth sense. The other side of your brain, I think of Da Vinci, very analytical, mathematical, speech, intellectual, logical. Now you don't want to be stuck in, we're coming back to this, aren't we? You don't want to be stuck in one brain state for any all-day set. So your brain flips from one to the other by blocking one. If say, right now, and usually it's called Nadi Shodhana in yoga, and if you use your thumb to block your right nostril, and just take a breath in and out through your left, then use your ring finger to block the left and breathe in and out through your right. Does it feel as though the air intake is the same, or is one a little bit more congested than the other? Yeah? Now your brain has done that, so you breathe in more through one nostril to activate a specific hemisphere of the brain, because you're on that cycle, that 90-minute cycle, where it wants more activation, whether it's sympathetic or parasympathetic. So this is a case of science, because I've read so many research papers on this, and it's absolutely, it sounds crazy, doesn't it, but it's 100% peer-reviewed. And yogis have been doing this for 2,000 years. And science now says, yeah, alternate nostril breathing, you can change states. Okay, so let's just have a little practice. So continue. Right thumb to your right nostril, breathe in and out through your left. Say breathe in for 4 or 5. Then hold as you transfer to the other side. Inhale right, exhale right. Hold while you change. Inhale left, exhale left. Hold, alternate. Continue. Got the idea. Now there's also something called psychic Nadi Shodhana, where you don't use your hand. And you would use that in feather breathing. And you will visualize and you will try to breathe in through the left nostril and out through the left. Hold, alternate to the right. Breathe in, breathe out. It helps if you need a physical cue. You can just flare the nostril a little of the side you want to breathe in and out, and then hold your breath, transfer to the other side, just flare the nostril a little, and then it gives you a physical cue as well as a mental cue. Okay? So every 90 minutes the brain will do this for you without you even knowing. We are doing it instead in a matter of seconds. And the reason you do it in yoga is because when you balance the two sides, you get into a meditation state. You're in the center. You're not overly sympathetic, you're not overly parasympathetic, you're somewhere in the middle. And that balance allows your whole body then to relax into meditation. So when you're doing your feather breathing now, and you're reducing your respiratory rate between 4.5 and 6 breaths per minute, so your breath is hardly perceptible, very, very gentle, soft, in, out, hardly any movement of your body. So when we do our feather breathing, as well as slowing the breath, calming the breath, releasing anti-inflammatory hormones, allowing the Bohr effect, the positive Bohr effect to take place to deliver more oxygen to your brain, then you will also have that balance and you'll be able to meditate so much easier by doing alternate nostril breathing. So let's now just move on to a few minutes of Nadi Shodhana and feather breathing. So begin with your feather breathing where you are slowing your breath to 5 or 6 breaths per minute. You're softening, calming your breath, you're activating the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic nervous system. And then, when I give you the cue, move into alternate nostril breathing. Okay. So, first of all, just relax. Slow your breath. Remember the effect of the longer exhale is to lower your heart rate, your blood pressure. Feel the very soft breath come in. Follow the gentle exhale. And add that very manage to do it with your mind rather than using your hand. So the purpose is to balance the two hemispheres of your brain, which the body does naturally. Because you're nasal breathing as well, you're going to have higher amounts of nitric oxide, which sterilises the air coming into your lungs. It's antibacterial, antiviral. So many benefits to doing feather breathing and alternate nostril breathing. Okay, so it's basically the opposite to some of the things that we've been looking at here. It's the opposite to the primate, it's the opposite to the reptilian brain freeze. It's calming, tapping into the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, and it helps us return to the parasympathetic nervous system from a life-threatening event. Whether it's a breath hold, so you want to finish your breath holds with feather breathing and nadi shira, because then you bring yourself down from that life-threatening event where the body has had to make all of these adaptations as though it was on top of Kilimanjaro. And then you need to bring yourself back down. So we use feather breathing to finish, alternate nostril breathing to balance the two hemispheres, and the effect on your